Lord, we thank you for this day. We come to you again asking for your guidance for this county and all the decisions that we make, Father. We don't want them to be our decisions. We want them to be decisions made pleasing to you, Father. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to negotiate and get this SPLOST to prosper our county and make every entity in this county better, Father. That's our ultimate goal, is to do your will. We pray that you would lead, guide, and direct us in each decision that we make. We pray that you would continue to keep your hedge of protection over this county. We thank you for loving each one of us despite our faults, Father. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this meeting is for us to vote on the approved amendments that the city of Jessup has sent us to change the parameters of the SPLOST. I take it everybody's had the opportunity to look over those. I will open the floor for a motion on the approved amendments from the city of Jessup.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I make a motion that we approve the amendments as presented from the city of Jessup.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, motion dies to lack of a second. I would like to explain this so everybody is clear. I want to inform the public that these negotiations have been going on for a year, approximately a year. They started with the previous commission. Isn't this correct, Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, sir.
And they were, I think the negotiations were ended with that commission because no agreement was made, and they decided to negotiate with the new commission because they felt like that would be a better option. Myself and Commissioner Gordon were nominated on the committee to do those negotiations. I think the city needs to spend more time figuring out what a blessing this SPLOST is to this county, rather than thinking up another excuse why they don't want to sign this SPLOST. The amendment that they made in this SPLOST was basically for the excess funds. The SPLOST, to me, maybe I have the wrong perspective of it, but the SPLOST is a county SPLOST. A resolution is to be sent so that we can put this on the ballot for the voters to vote on. We have each municipality is given the opportunity to bring items forward on projects that they would like to have done with that. Those items have a specific number put on them. The county and the municipalities, we agree on a number that we guess that the SPLOST will generate in that 6-year period. When the voters vote on it, they not only vote on the amount of money that's going to be spent on those projects, but they also vote on the projects, whatever they may be. To me, the amendment that they're asking for excess funds is not fair to the voters. The voters were given an option to vote on something with a specific number. That excess funds is that could possibly be generated. The reason we went with $28 million, I heard some conflict on that. This is a projected number. If we have that number too high, we allocate that higher number to each project. If the SPLOST does not generate that number, then the entity which put the number on that project is still responsible for completion of that project. So to break it down, if we put $10 million on a judicial annex and the money was not generated in that 6 years from the penny that comes from the SPLOST, we would still, the taxpayers would still be responsible for finishing that project out of our general funds. The taxpayers know that, and they rely on the negotiators and the municipalities to put a reasonable figure on that so that it does not, because some of these projects are, ours is $10 million on the judicial annex. To me, the numbers that we're looking at are very reasonable. They may not be. There may be excess funds. Who knows? It's to me, it reminds me of the stock market. You don't know what it's going to do. Due to inflation, these have, our numbers are higher this year. We have generated more than what we had expected. As far as negotiations with the city, we have come a long ways. I've heard people say, well, we're not willing, the county's not willing to bend or anything. Let me explain to you. And this is what I would have thought that the city of Jessup would have done when they were figuring out whether to sign this agreement or not. Back a year ago, on the items that the county was bringing forward was a $42 million judicial complex. That's one of the issues that they had, was spending so much money, and myself personally, I had an issue with spending that much money of the taxpayers, which would come out of multiple SPLOST, because the $42 million would not be feasible. But my Commissioner Gordon, Mr. Drawdy, and Mr. Beaver, and I strategically looked through the items that we were going to put on there as projects that the county wanted to do. We went from a $42 million complex to a $10 million annex, which is more, it will more than suffice for the safety concerns we have on the courthouse. We chose not to make that a Tier 1 capital project. For that not being a Tier 1 capital project, let me explain what Tier 1 is. If it's labeled as a Tier 1 project, that money comes to, all the SPLOST money comes to that project first. Once it's paid off, the remainder of that money will be split up in the municipalities and the county. And the number that we came up with was population. By us not putting that as a Tier 1 project, I went on ahead and figured up the numbers so everybody will be on the same page. By that not coming up as a Tier 1 project, the city of Jessup would receive approximately $9.1 million. Had we put that as a Tier 1 project, the city of Jessup's portion would be $5.8 million, plus or minus. That's a big difference. And that's just by us reducing or choosing not to put that as a Tier 1 project, which I think we all want what's fair for not only the county, but all the cities as well. We all need these projects. These projects are utilized, and the county, the reason we have negotiations is so the county And we worked with the municipalities to make sure that the projects were put on there were beneficial to whether it's the city of Scriven, the city of Odom, the city of Jessup, or the county. And because of it being our SPLOST, we are in charge of that, to make sure that we are all in agreement. We didn't have a problem with anybody's items that they put on those that they would like to have done with that SPLOST money. By it not being a tier 1 project, we also possibly have interest that we will have to pay to get that project done. We gave a deadline of October the 20th. That we've been working on this for a year. It is time. The money, the time frame that we have to have the resolution sent in 90 days before early voting in, I think it's February 19th, and everything has to be turned in. Not only that, but we need to make sure that those items are turned in and we have the opportunity to inform the public on what those items are so they can make an informed decision on what they're voting on. A lot of people don't know what they're voting on when some of these items come up. We want to give plenty of time so that there's several groups out there that want to make sure that they are able to get this information out. Not only on SPLOST 5, but also those items on SPLOST 4 that are able to show the good faith of the government in those projects being completed and completed as it was put on the resolution for SPLOST 4. 9D, what we're talking about, the amendment was for the cities and the municipalities to be able to take the excess money that is collected over that 6-year period and use it at their own discretion. To me, that's not what the voters are voting on. The voters are voting on a specific number and specific projects. That money excess is to use to lower ad valorem taxes for the county. To me, it's a county SPLOST, and we should have say-so in where that money goes. Turn it back over to the people. Let them decide. But the main reason is for the ad valorem taxes to be lowered so that excess funds it goes right back to the taxpayers. Not on projects that we as the county or the city choose to put on there that the taxpayers didn't get the opportunity to vote on. Do y'all have anything you want to add to this? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for being tardy, but I want to commend you and Mike on the job you've done with negotiating this thing and coming up with the percentage. When you all were nominated to negotiate, and you said that you all wanted to try it because we couldn't get it done. I won't go there, but I'm glad you had that experience. No pun intended. Most everything we do, county, I would say 80% of what we do is legislatively mandated. I'm trying to keep saying that so somebody will get it. We don't have a choice. It is mandated by the state that we do those things. Okay? Most everything that the city does is fee-based. They charge. If the police department decide that they're going to shut down tomorrow, they can do that. But according to state law, who's got to take up the slack? The
County has that obligation.
The sheriff department, we don't have a choice. So we got to hire people, and we got to do the city and the county. With other things, the court systems and all that kind of stuff. So being a county splosh, with the excess money, everybody pay county taxes. The people that pay city taxes, whether it be Odom, Scriven, or whoever, those are taxes to that city. But everybody pay county taxes. With the money coming back to the county, we can distribute that money on projects or however we do that. Any way we do it is gonna help lower the expenses for the county and help everybody. I mean, let's call Ray Charles, you can see that,
I got you. I agree with you.
okay?
I agree.
So,
My turn?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I sent out a request yesterday for some documents that went on with the SPLOST and the SPLOST negotiations. He said it had been going on for a year. I figured there would be a plethora of information out there. What I received in return was the IGA that the county sent to the municipalities and the response from the city of Jessup. So I embarked on some deep dive research on my own. So I have a series of questions to ask. Please don't answer them until we get all the way through all my series of questions, because I'm thrilled that you want to the voters to be informed. The only thing that's not on my list that you mentioned is the lowering of the ad valorem taxes, which I'm thrilled at this point in time that we are at a point where we're willing to lower the ad valorem taxes, because when we sat in this room just 2 months ago, I made a motion to lower the ad valorem taxes to mills, because at the end of our last audit, we had a $20 million fund balance, and that was not possible. So if we've had a turn in the tide of the thoughts and the feelings of this board, that thrills me to no end. Here is,
Excuse me, speaking to your microphone.
oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Questions. Was the county's original offer to the 3 municipalities on SPLOST 5 split? What was the county's offer to the 3 municipalities? Several times I've heard that population is the only fair way to divide the SPLOST split. Well, in that population, Screven's actual population is 2.54%. Odom's is 1.54%, and Jessup's is 32.564 split or percent. And when the split came out, the $9.1 million you just referred to is a split of 32.5. So the fractions of which have dropped. Well, they haven't dropped. They've actually rolled in favor of the county. What formula was used by Wayne County to arrive at a $28 million 6-year SPLOST proceeds projection? My understanding is that the county used a 17-year average collection to divide out to come by this number. Is that right? 17 years ago, the Dow Jones was at 10,000. I don't know that 17 years is the best way to go about projecting those numbers. I know that the school board did a 5-year SPLOST just 2 years ago, and their projected 5 years numbers was 30 million. Did any of the 3 municipalities request a SPLOST division different than what the county proposed? Obviously, the city of Jessup offered a land trade for a fire department that the city would absorb the $1.8 million cost of building. What concessions were made by the county to accommodate any of the requests from any of the 3 municipalities in the IGA agreement? From my understanding, the county made 0 concessions. They told the cities what the SPLOST would be, and that is where we have moved from that point in time. We took a population distribution. Did the county have a provision to move? Does the county have, at this point in time now that we've died for a lack of a second, this goes back to the city. Does the county have a provision to put a SPLOST on the ballot that does not include the signatures of the 3 municipalities? And what will that look like? Is it in fact a tier 1? What is the plan going forward? Did Screven or Odom raise any concerns about paragraph 9D in the IGA agreement? Did they in writing ask for it to be fixed? Chair?
Sorry, would you repeat that?
That one, yes. Did Screven or Odom raise any concerns about paragraph 9D in the IGA agreement, and did they ask for it to be fixed? I did some research and some reaching out to other counties, and this is Appling County's IGA for the 2024 SPLOST. And its division reads like this: for 9D, the excess funds. All sums collected through the SPLOST of the 6-year termination date shall be distributed as follows: a 50% to the county for maintenance and constructions of roads, bridges in the county, and 50% to the city for maintenance and constructions of streets, utility, drainage within the municipality city limits. 9D can, in fact, by legislation, be amended. It is not a legislative act. It is a negotiable item at the county and municipal level. Here is a big question I have. I read the Press Sentinel article from October the 5th. This is the article in which the land fire department trade was discussed. In this article, Commissioner Tim Cockfield states he had a phone conversation with Chairman McCrary. He states, and I quote, "The whole notion that they were blindsided is just not true. I have the phone records to prove it." Commissioner Cockfield goes on to state, and I quote, "McCrary had asked that it not be brought up in a SPLOST committee meeting to keep Screven and Odom representatives from asking for concessions as well," close quote. Another quote from the article says, and I quote, "Cockfield said that in a later phone call, McCrary assured him that he had the votes to push the deal through the County Board of Commissioners," close quote. One final quote from that article. I quote, "County Administrator Paul Drawdy has previously noted that the county agreed for the city of Jessup to get a higher percentage from this SPLOST for expensive work on the sewer treatment plant," close quote. Is any information inside of this article accurate? Was there a phone conversation between Commissioner Cockfield and Commissioner McCrary? Did Commissioner Cockfield call Commissioner McCrary? Did Commissioner McCrary call Commissioner Cockfield? And what deal is he referring to that you have the votes to push it on through? In multiple open meetings from this bench, this board has stated that any agreements between the county governments must be in writing. The funds in question could exceed $7 million. Does the county have a motive for a 6-year excess funds to be used in a manner other than by population distribution between the county and the 3 municipalities? Did we promise the distribution would stay the same? Did we say to anyone, you just have to trust us? Would the other municipalities like this agreement, this distribution, be in writing? What is the premise for this excess distribution to not be in writing. The 3 municipalities gave the county every single thing the county demanded in SPLOST negotiations. Why would we not put the distribution of funds in writing? Thank you.
Okay, that's a lot of questions. I can't can I have your list?
Oh,
so
sure
I
you
can
can.
go back through them, please?
Sure.
I think I already answered your last question, is why it would not be put in writing, because the taxpayers vote on a SPLOS specifically with numbers, specifically with projects, and any of that excess money is to go back to the taxpayers to lower their taxes. Far as, yeah, here, I'll just have to go back through them. I've got my notes written down. Was the county's original offer to the 3 municipalities for SPLOST 5 split. Several times I heard population was the only fair way. I don't, was the county's original offer to the 3 municipalities for SPLOST 5
Do you
split?
want me to read those to you?
No, it's okay. When we went into the meeting, I'm gonna answer 2 questions in this thing.
Okay.
I think all 4 of us were in the meeting. I'm gonna ask this question. You can either say yes or no, or raise your hand or whatever. The question was asked to me before our second SPLOS meeting was underway. Commissioner Cockfield asked me the question, are we going to talk about the land? I specifically told him, no, the land is not part of SPLOS. This is a SPLOS negotiation meeting. Did anybody here that was in those negotiations hear that comment?
I did. I was sitting
Okay.
beside you.
Regardless of what he says on the phone, I'm gonna answer another question now. Referring to, I had an agreement, or I had 3 votes, or whatever, for the city to receive the Days Inn property. Had I said that, why would you have had to gone around me to get that contract put on the agenda? Had I said that, I would have put it on the agenda myself. But you went around me to put it on the agenda, and it was voted down. I specifically said then, when I was appointed as a negotiator for the SPLOST, it's only for the SPLOST, not anything else that the county owns or anything. And anything that we did, either way, when we were in those negotiations, it's very clear we're voting on it in here with all of us before it's done. That's why we're here now. We're voting on some of the changes that the city wants. And that way it's fair to everybody. We're not trying to hide anything from anybody. It's amazing to me how this is all trying to be turned around. You just saw the hands raised as to what he was told before the meeting. So obviously that is not true. It may have been printed in the paper because that's what he was told. Okay, you want to open this can of worms? We'll open it. The city mayor and Tim Cockfield went to the other municipalities before they signed those agreements. We have one of the mayors in here now. He had a private meeting with the 2 mayors, the mayor of Odom and the mayor of Scriven, to try to persuade them not to sign that agreement. Why would you do that? I mean, that makes no sense to me. It's to my understanding, they wanted no part of that. The county, they feel like that the county does fair. I don't understand why you would try to go behind the county, we have tried to hold all the negotiations for SPLOST in an open meeting. I've had numerous phone calls of people calling me, asking me questions, and I say, Mr. Drawdy, you can, they called and asked him, and that was my response. We're not making any negotiations without everybody being at the table in an open meeting for transparency. Next question, what formula was used? As I said before, we use conservative numbers. With inflation the way it is now, you cannot rely on that to generate your final number that a 6-year SPLOST is going to generate. As I said before, you can put it at $33 million, but if they have projects that are not completed because that money does not come in, it comes out of their general fund. Do you know what happens when it comes out of general fund? Taxes have to go up to pay for that. It's a balancing act, and we're trying to do it the conservative way so that there's nothing, so that we're looking out for the best interests of everybody, regardless. We don't want to give an astronomical number that may not be achieved and put them in jeopardy of having to go up on taxes later because their projects are not being funded by the money that's coming in from SPLOST.
Mr. Chairman, can I clarify some of that?
Yes, sir,
And
please.
the reason I'm gonna clarify it is because I wasn't instrumental, but I played a big role in helping determine what that number would be. One of the things we did is we looked at 2020, which was the year that the government was just pushing out all the COVID money. And then we took 2020, 21, and 22, and all three of those, when you look over our history of SPLOST, I would consider anyway, that they're outliers. In other words, it was a bunch more money than we'd ever received before, and it was almost like a spike. Obviously, 22 and 21 were mainly due to inflation. So in thinking about that and trying to prepare for the future, part of my thought process was, do you want to base the next 6 years on these 3 years that I would consider outlying years? So what we done is we took the entire 17 years, come up with an average, and just multiplied it by 6. That's how we got the 28 million. In preparation for not doing the level 1 project and possibly having to issue bonds, I've talked to the bond attorney and the same folks that did the numbers for the school board, they did numbers for us as well. That 28 million falls in line with, in their projection of negative growth to positive growth. When the guy sat down with me, he said, that's a good number. All right. A little bit more on that, on reference to the school board, when you bring them in. The school board's just a little bit different from the standpoint that when they do a 5-year SPLOST and they put a cap on it, they can't go over that cap. So they have an incentive to make that number higher. So that way, if there is excess funds, because if the school board says we're going to receive 28 million and that 28 million is received in the first 4 years, then the SPLOST is over with. So that's why they typically will project a little bit higher number than you'll see the county projecting. So that's where the 28 million come from, or the calculations for it.
Thank you. Next question. Did any of the 3 municipalities request SPLOST division different from the county proposed division? No. When we went into the meeting, I proposed that we do the split by population because that's the most fair split. Not one head in there didn't do this right here. Every one of them agreed to it.
Will you restate that? Just for, did anybody ask for any split different than population? Just restate your answer.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, city asked for 35.7.
Originally, they had asked for more. I'm sorry. They had asked for that, but the final agreement was everybody was in agreement with population.
Mr. Chairman, can I give some clarification?
Yes, sir, please.
I would like to go back even before that first meeting when Commissioners Gordon and McCrary and I met together in preparation for the SPLOST committee meetings. One of the the first initial topic to come up was, okay, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about percentages, what the projects are, and we just kind of laid out how we thought everything should flow. And the one thing that I was extremely proud of as a county administrator was these two guys saying, what do y'all think? And then I'd said in the room, well, I know for a fact, I've heard Bob Morgan report that Tim Cockfield and Jason Weaver think the only fair way to do this is population. They both said, well, let's don't even negotiate. Let's give them what they want. Then when it come to the level 1 project, instead of them missing out on money for the first 2 years, they said, let's don't make the courthouse level 1. Let's just go ahead and let everybody get their money from the start. I mean, literally, I had the sense that we walked into that meeting where, yeah, it was a meeting to negotiate, but for the most part, the county was going, here's everything you want. Now, were there some in the room that decided that, well, we want a little bit more, and here's why we think we should get more, and that's where my comment, I think, that come in the Press Sentinel was made, where I made the statement that the city got 35.7 in SPLOST 4 because the county and the other two municipalities in 2018 had decided to allow them extra percentage so they could do the wastewater treatment plant. That's where that statement come from. But for me, it's been extremely frustrating from the standpoint to see us start off this and walk in with the idea that we're going to make this as fair as possible, and then immediately after that start receiving phone calls of, well, we want this, and well, we want this, and well, we want this. Because the chairman is correct. In that meeting, Mr. Cockfield said it, I think Mayor Weaver said it, that look, this is one of the best meetings we've ever had with the county. I mean, the feelings coming out of that first meeting, I thought were great. And I'll tell you why I think they were great, is because I believe it was a preparation that these two gentlemen did before we ever even got to the meeting. They wasn't going in there heavy-handed and going, this is exactly what you're going to get, and if you want something more, we're going to have to sit here and fight over it. It was a matter of, we've heard you want population, you can have it. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to keep taxes away from you or the sales or SPLOST money away from you for the first 2 years. We're not going to make it a level 1, which means, keep this in mind, if the courthouse annex is not level 1, then what do we have to do? The county has to issue bonds. And those bonds could come with an interest rate of anywhere from $3 to $4 million. So not only does the city get the benefit of collecting that extra $3 million that first 2 years, but the county now is going to have to pay an additional $3 million in interest so that can be done.
To speak of heavy-handedness, if we're heavy-handedness, this is a letter from the county to the city of Jessup dated October 11th. Dear City of Jessup SPLOST committee members, we are in receipt of your email and mail correspondence dated October the 5th, 2023, concerning the proposed SPLOST sales tax. As I am sure you are aware, the City of Screven and the City of Odom both approved the intergovernmental agreement. At the SPLOST meeting on September 6, 2023, all parties, including yourselves, agreed to how the proposed SPLOST proceedings would be divided. The fact that the City of Jessup is now requesting that negotiations be reopened seemed misleading and perfidious. Even still, please send us a written correspondence of the issues that you would like to renegotiate and the desired changes. Once received, a determination will be made whether the county will agree to renegotiate the previously agreed to intergovernmental agreement. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Sincerely, the SPLOST committee. It's unsigned. The previous letter from the mayor of the city of Jessup to the county administrator reads as follows. This is October the 5th, 2023. Dear Mr. Drotti, thank you for the update on Chairman McCrary. I hope his surgery goes well and he recovers quickly. The IGA was not on our agenda for Tuesday's meeting. We did discuss some issues with this agreement. The current document isn't ready at this point for consideration of a vote. We have a few things that need to be addressed first, to include 9D in the contract. This is a major issue to the city of Jessup as well as the other two municipalities. Mike Connor will be sending you a letter requesting a meeting, hopefully next week, to continue our negotiations. We support a SPLOST and certainly want it just like you do. However, beyond 9D, which we cannot accept, we have $4.6 million in capital projects, the waste treatment plant, which the county agreed to in the last SPLOST, is leaving us unfunded in this agreement. The project was $13 million and has 3 GFA loans for approximately $4.6 million in notes over the next 6 years. These payoff balances are currently $8.2 million. Also, 2 weeks ago, we were informed by the contractor and Bill Schuman that the sewer infrastructure project that covers the industrial park will likely go over by as much as $5 million. $1 million will be covered by contingency, and it's possible, according to Bill, that the overage could be more like $2 to $3 million. That's better, but still, between the two, we are on the hook for close to $8 million in capital projects that are at least in part needed to complete the industrial park. The IGA gives us no help with either of those issues. We are open-minded and are willing to work with the county government. But true negotiations require both sides to be open-minded and willing to give and take. We look forward to sitting down with you guys and working for what is best with everyone. Sincerely, Mayor Ralph Hickox.
That it?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you're exactly reiterating the fact of the reason we didn't put you on the negotiating committee,
Why is that?
because you are one-sided. There's a conflict of interest with you and the mayor. I'm just stating the facts. Everything that we're hearing is all for the city, but you're not.
I represent the city.
No, you're a county commissioner.
Yes, I am. My district, the far majority of my district is within the city limits of Jessup. And the last time I checked, Jessup, Georgia was located inside the county of Wayne.
Okay, well, you need to check, because the city has a city commissioner to represent the city portion of those taxes, and they have a county commissioner which represents the county portion of those
So
taxes.
I don't represent anybody in the city? Is that what you're saying?
One more time. The city of Jessup has a city commissioner to represent the city portion. You are a county commissioner which represents the county portion of the taxes that they pay. Anybody else see any difference in that? That's what it is. And that's why when we were nominating people for the board to negotiate, we chose for you, and you agreed, I believe, that we would not nominate you because there may be a conflict of interest. Back to your other, let me put it this way. If I had a brand new Cadillac and I offered it to you for $5,000, would there be any need for negotiations? Would you say, oh, well, I'll only pay you $4,000? No, you wouldn't. You'd take that Cadillac. That's exactly what we did. Commissioner Thomas, you buy Cadillacs, you know what I'm talking
I
about.
got Cadillac.
But you're talking about negotiations and things like that. Negotiating, you know, you're wanting us to negotiate off of what is fair. I think Commissioner Gordon, Paul, Andy, and I, all the negotiating was done before we got to the meeting. We had already figured out what was fair, and all the other municipalities agreed with it. Just
Easiest negotiation they have ever been through.
yeah,
Where did
We-
35.7 come in at?
35. That's what who knows? That was the number they came up with. The only reason they got that percentage before was for water and waste treatment plant. They were doing an expansion on it. They were given an extra portion to complete that project. Yes, sir?
Mr. Chairman, since I've been here the longest.
Please speak into your mic.
Since I've been here the longest, the negotiations that we did, every time we negotiated, was done on need. We were trying to be fair to everybody. If Odom or Scriven had projects they wanted to bring to the table, and Jessup, we would negotiate as fair as we could, trying to accommodate those municipalities. That year, the city had the sewer problem, or the plant down there, the waste plant. That's why they got the 30-some%. Because of need, we're trying to be good neighbors and help them out, because, yes, I'm a county commissioner. Most of my district is in the city, some of it's in the county. But I represent the county portion of that. And, which put a bigger weight on my shoulder, because it doesn't matter. Any of y'all districts that something goes on, people call me as well, because I'm gonna vote on what happened in the whole county. And believe me, I got an 02 Dodge out there with 298,000 miles on it that I've been driving since I've been here. I like a retirement truck when I leave anyway. So we've been going on need, and it didn't bother me at all that y'all got baptized in this negotiation stuff. And it seems to me that that was the best thing to do, is on the percentage rate. And there's some years, as you check the taxes back, Odom or Scriven got a little bit more percentage than others, so did we at one time. But it took forever to reach those negotiations, because we argued and cussed back and forth.
Let the record show we didn't have any cussing in our meetings.
Could I ask Mayor Weaver about 9D? If this, they stated that the excess money would go back to the county and to lower taxes. For one, let me make a statement. Wayne County does not have a great track record of lowering taxes. That's not my question. My question is, what will it do to what effects would the city of Screven have if it's above $28 million, the funds from SPLOST 5 ceased to go to Screven and they stayed in the county of just Wayne County coffers? What effect would that have on the city of Screven?
You're not going to have to answer that question. I've already answered that question. In this SPLOST right here, every entity is getting more money than they have ever received from a SPLOST. I've already answered the question. It's not up to him. It's not up to the amount of money. That's why we set the number at 28 million. Let me go on and get through these other questions. As far as negotiations, to me, the negotiations were made ahead of time, and they were given the most fair contract, as Commissioner Gordon said. Easiest negotiation they ever went to, because we'd already figured everything out. They didn't have to ask us not to put the judicial annex as a tier 1. We already did that for them. Did Scriven and Odom raise any concerns, paragraph 9D in the IGA agreement? No. I didn't. Did anybody hear anything from Odom and Scriven on complaints?
No.
Well, we did get the email from Mayor Weaver.
That's right.
But in the meeting, no.
Right.
If that's the question.
No, that's not the question.
Okay.
What is the question?
Did they in writing ask that this paragraph be fixed to reflect the population distribution throughout the entirety of the 6-year SPLOST?
Yes, Mayor Weaver did request that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to add something to that question, if I may. Same language in SPLOST 5 as in SPLOST 4. And are you still receiving those funds, Mayor Weaver?
Yeah, okay. I don't want, you can state the fact that I don't want them to be put on the spot here. I'm sorry. This is a called meeting, and it will be held the same as if we were in a regular meeting. If you're put on the agenda, you'll be able to speak. Read the front article in the press. I think we've already answered
I don't
that.
think we've answered any of that. Was there
About Cockfield saying that I had...
was there a phone conversation? Did he call you? Did you call him?
No, I called him because Mayor Ralph Hickox was blowing up my phone telling me we did not have an agreement with population.
But he was mistaken?
Who was mistaken?
Whoever's blowing up your phone. Because you just said we had the most agreeable agreement ever. Then why would he blow up your phone that we don't have an agreement?
I have no earthly idea why he would say that, because my conversation with Commissioner Cockfield, I asked him, I told him specifically, I said, Ralph has called me over and over telling me we do not have an agreement. I said, did you and I not shake hands at the end of that meeting and say that we had an agreement? And he said, yes, we do have an agreement, and the agreement was for population, period.
And 35.7%, when did that came in before negotiations, after negotiations? Obviously, at this point in time, that's a rhetorical question. Go right ahead.
I mean, Ralph had asked that early on.
Yes, sir.
To me, as Commissioner Thomas stated, there was no justification for them getting more than population.
The
If you
industrial
would look-
park is named the Wayne Commerce Center. It is not named the City of Jessup Industrial Park. The county of Wayne went to the city of Jessup and said, will you annex this in so that we can have pad-ready sites? We're looking at $15 million to run utilities out to that site. Is that something that should solely be, is it only going to benefit the citizens of inside the city of Jessup? But when last SPLOST, we made provision for it, it's still not paid for.
I think the problem is that none of that was brought out. It's been
Exactly.
brought out after the fact.
No,
And
the
that's
problem
what's
is
been-
they were told you can put $9.1 million worth of projects. 9.1. They have a list of projects with big marks through them because the county's not willing to negotiate. 35.7%, that one includes Wayne Commerce Center.
Yeah, but that wasn't told, Commissioner.
Oh, okay.
Listen, up until that second meeting, what we constantly received was phone calls from the mayor saying, we're not going to sign it unless you give the land. And that's what Commissioner McCrary was calling about.
How did the land ever come up? How did the land
From-
ever come up in this?
They
From the mayor's
asked,
where I heard it.
So
they
they-
said they wanted to build a fire station and ask for the property.
Okay.
And at that point, I did say, I myself am in favor of it, because I want this county to grow, and if we have a better fire station and it lowers ISO ratings, I'm all for it. But I don't make the decision, this entire board makes the decision, and
How
I
many-
think that's where the confusion is at.
How many phone calls would you say that you respectfully received from the city of Jessup or any of their representatives about SPOS? Because you just used the term blowed up. So how many, over this negotiating period, how many phone calls would
There was-
ballpark?
I would say 75, none of them were from any other the negotiators besides Ralph Hickox.
Thank you.
And you want to know the time frame on those, they're about 45 minutes to an hour per call.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, negotiations. I think we handled all the negotiations because when we got in the meeting, everybody said that was the fairest, easiest negotiations they ever went to. So there was no need for us to bend or flex on what we had stated because everybody agreed on it. What deal was Commissioner Cockfield referring to that you had the votes to push through? We already answered that one. Did I answer that to your
I don't know,
satisfaction?
so confused. But we did establish that you called Commissioner Cockfield and that, the Press Sentinel printed accurate information. That was the gist of that.
No, because he was
No.
saying that we had it for the land deal, and we already cleared that up, that it was not for the land deal.
Okay.
It was only clarification that Commissioner Hickox was trying to confuse, saying that we did not have a SPOS deal, and
I'm
at that
Commissioner
time.
Hickox.
I'm sorry, Mayor Hickox. At that time, we needed to make the decision if they had a problem with it, we needed to have another meeting.
Okay.
Because I was under the impression when we left there, when we shook hands, the deal was made.
Okay.
Open meetings, the bench, this board had stated that agreements between the county government must be, here, I want to answer that other question you had about the industrial park.
Okay.
I want everybody to keep in mind that every single project that the county has put on this, that will possibly be put on the resolution, is within the city limits. All of those projects are not only to benefit the county employee or the county taxpayers, but also the city, because they will make money off of our water and sewer bill towards them. You're insinuating that the county does nothing to help with the new industrial park. That is a far cry from the truth.
If I insinuated that, I apologize. I never made that insinuation. I'm just saying there's more money owed to make those pad-ready sites than what the city of Jessup is capable of bearing. That's the only thing.
Well, that's what I got from it, that they're toting the total bearing of what's going on, the burden of paying for all of this. And the county does pay IDA $330,000 a year, plus our TIA money went to help pay for the road entering into it. We have spent numerous county employee hours mucking out 2 acres of property there to clear the right-of-way for the road and also to get those sites ready for pad ready. Anything else that I'm missing that we have contributed to? There's,
Mr. Chairman, you gotta keep in mind too, that when we make those agreements with the city, when you annex the industrial park in the city, you gotta understand too, how much taxes that's gonna generate for the city for a number of years down the road until it's changed. So whatever they put in, they're gonna get back that and then some.
Industria comes with tax abatements. Heaven only knows how far down the road it's
Tax
going.
abatements run out soon, your tax abatements.
Eventually.
I know that.
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, you might want to remain silent. You might want to check with your county attorney, because it sounds like you in the court of law here. This is kind of dragging out.
I agree.
Okay, I got I got other things to do. First of all, the county, as far as Texas is concerned, have done an excellent job. Basically, they've done too good of a job, because for a number of years, and our county clerk can tell you, we kept the millage at a certain rate, and we did that for too long. We kicked the can down the road too long. That's why we came to the 5 million increase. We should have been going up, and we should have. One of your city commissioners, was a county commissioner, came over here and said, I came to lower taxes. And he made a motion that we lower taxes, a meal or whatever it was, and we did that. And we ended up having to borrow money from the contingency money to make out the budget. That can be verified. You know, you gotta be careful. We lowered the millage rate as much as we could this time, and we didn't want to make that same mistake. I think we all was on the same page. That we lowered it more than we had to. We wanted to make sure that we didn't get back in the same trouble, that we could have to come back and ask the taxpayers for more money. So, and other people wanted to lower it more. Now, I understand you want to lower taxes. Was that solely on the taxpayers' benefit, or because you all have an LLC and property on tax digest for about $3.5 million, and 2 bills would have maybe saved y'all?
Hold on. We don't want to bring personal
I
into
pay all
this.
my taxes, thank you very much.
We don't want to bring personal into this.
Well, we've already brought personal into it. Okay.
We don't want to bring personal into this.
So we'll end where he just made a
We're
personal,
going to end
one-sided
all of
personal.
this now. I feel like that the county has done their due diligence in presenting a reasonable split with the money. I think they have presented a reasonable contract for us to sign for all the municipalities in the city of Jessup to be able to be the most fair. Regardless of what anybody says, in that meeting, everybody said it was the most fair.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question that's occurring to me. You stated that the SPOS 4 contract and SPOS 5 contract are the exact same one, right?
Yes.
So the question is, I've been to those meetings where Odom, Scriven, and Jessup said it's already, SPOS 4 is already over the projected, what it's projected, but the city of Jessup, city of Odom, city of Scrivener are getting funds. So my question is, why is that excess funds being saved to the county to do what you said it's gonna do, is lower the millage rate?
You're exactly right, Bob. And that is the can of worms that the city has opened, and now that that has been brought to our attention, we have,
If you don't mind, I'd like the county attorney to address it.
okay.
If that's okay with you, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman.
I may have some comments, but go ahead.
I'm sorry.
So I think you heard the city attorney say, if I'm not mistaken, I was getting this secondhand knowledge, but from what I understand the city attorney to say was that there's an argument to be made that anything over the projected $28 million in SPOS 5 could be considered excess funds. And I would agree with that standpoint. An argument could be made that anything over the collected $28 million could be considered excess funds. 9D to me, probably the best way I could think to say it is probably 9D to me is not mutually exclusive to an amendment that they wanted to potentially add to the agreement. What 9D says substantively, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't have the agreement right in front of me, but is essentially that 5 years after the termination of the SPOS tax. So the way you read that in conjunction with SPOS 5 is that SPOS 5 would begin in July, potentially, if it's approved by the voters from the referendum, would begin collections in July of 2024. It's a 6-year tax, so it would end approximately June of 2030. What 9D says is that 5 years after the termination of the tax, so it would be 5 years after 2030, that any funds remaining at that point in time that has not been allocated or spent by the municipalities would then be deemed excess funds and be returned to the county. The way I understand from our negotiating team, that they are looking at that is that, you know, again, for purposes of transparency, and I think Chairman McCrary hit on the issue earlier, that we are sending a referendum to the citizens of Wayne County to vote to yes or no on a SPLOST tax that will have inside the referendum specific projects and specific allocations that the voters are going to decide whether they think it's appropriate for that money to be spent on those specific items. As it relates to SPLOST 4, the notion, I know it's been brought up today, that over 20, and the projected amount of 21 million was the projected amount for SPLOST. Of course, you have to take into context, at the time that SPLOST 4 was being negotiated and implemented, that, you know, hindsight's always 20/20. We didn't have the benefit of knowing that we'd be experiencing a pandemic in 2020, that there would be, you know, hands and fists of money given from the government to people that would artificially inflate our numbers from SPLOST 4. And it's my understanding that we have collected more than the $21 million. Again, I think the clerk could probably tell you exactly how much. And language from SPLOST 5 is in SPLOST 4. And to my knowledge, that same percentage has been continued to be given to the individual municipalities and the counties. With SPLOST 5, again, reference being made to that same language being in there, it is. What I think that, again, the notion that we can't amend or change 9D, I think that may be, that's a wrong narrative. The language, it was a negotiating point, and I think the negotiating team said, you know, at least from Wayne County's position, that was the position, that they did not want to change the language of 9D. The city amendment wants to basically sit here and define what excess funds is over $28 million. The law explicitly states that any excess funds should come back to the county to alleviate taxes and go into the general fund. And again, I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but the bare essence of it is that any excess funds come back to the county. I think where the argument or some confusion's coming in out and is, you know, the actual definition of excess funds. Again, 9D does hit on the fact to some degree that and gives us somewhat of a definition for excess funds, more in my mind consistent with the state law that, you know, any funds that are collected from a SPLOST must be used on specific projects. Not only that, but they must be used in a certain time frame. And again, from Wayne County's negotiating standpoint, I think, you know, that was a very transparent way of putting it into the IGA that, hey, if you've collected funds for this between the years 2024 and 2030, that within the time frame of 2035, that you ought to have those funds at least allocated or spent. That's fair to the taxpayers that went and voted and said, hey, we agree with y'all on spending the money this way on these projects. So again, if you don't have those money spent, that's where, you know, it gives us some sort of definition for the excess funds. Again, taking the city's amendment, they changed the narrative of what they deem as excess funds as anything over $28 million. Again, it's not illegal to do that, and you can absolutely negotiate the terms of excess funds in an IGA. That's all possible, but again, an agreement takes all sides. Again, I think our SPLOST negotiating committee liked the idea of the way that 9D was formulated in there to give us a little bit of flexibility. You know, again, I can't tell you where I'm going to be at tomorrow, next week, next year. We certainly don't know the challenges and issues that we as a county or each individual municipality may have 4 years from now. You know, again, I think it gives us a little bit of leeway in the event some catastrophic event happens that we are, and if we are fortunate enough to even collect the $28 million. Again, with the projections, I know that some parts of the discussion talked about, you know, with the state of the the country's economy and looking at potentially a recession at any given time, conservative efforts were made in the event that we don't collect the $28 million, that we haven't put ourselves or municipality, set them up for failure there. Again, I think the argument lies in where you want to define excess funds. I think the law is not as clear on that issue as we would like it to be. I think an argument can be made that, you know, along with what the city attorney said, again, I agree with him that you could, inside the intergovernmental agreement, classify it as anything over $28 million. I think another argument that you can make is, you know, that you had cost overruns, the actual costs, you know, exceeded the expected cost, that the actual cost should be used as a definition for excess funds. Again, I just think it was a negotiating issue that, you know, from our side, or from the county side of it, the SPLOST negotiating team side of it, they said, hey, we like the way that 9D is written and we don't want to change it. Did that answer your question?
You have a comment?
Yes, sir.
I'll sit here and be quiet, been quiet, but I've made a few notes, and I'd like just to say this first. The relationship with the municipalities is very important to me, and I think the whole board. We want to get along. We want to have all the municipalities taken care of. One reason why we negotiated population, we thought it was the most fair way to do. And Jamie, I can remember a time not too long ago when you were for population. As far as calls from Ralph, the mayor, I too received numerous calls, and I really didn't want to negotiate over a telephone. I thought it was the time and the place would have been an open meeting. There's reasons why the tax dollars come to the county. The county is accountable for this money. And if there were excess funds and the cities have a project, they can apply for that. Am I correct? But that being said, I'd like to make a motion, and my motion is this. Today is the 20th of October. It's the deadline that was set and sent on September the 28th to all the municipalities. So I make the motion that we accept and sign the original agreement for SPLOST 5. The agreement has already been approved, signed, and sent by the city of Odom and the city of Scriven. And I think we should allow Jessup a time limit, either they want to get in or they can get out. That's my motion.
Okay, so we set the deadline for the 20th. To me, this has gone on long enough. I say we set the date at October the 25th would be next Wednesday at 10 o'clock a.m. If we have not received a signed contract from the city of Jessup at 11 o'clock on October the 25th, the county will pursue a SPLOST by themselves without the municipalities. If they do give us a signed, if they do sign the contract and bring it to us, then he will do the same thing. He will start on the resolution by 11 o'clock on that same day to start the proceedings to get the resolutions filled out so that we can start getting the information out to the public to let them know that we do have an agreement. We also, I don't know if we want to do this in a separate one, but I want it to be contingent with this contract being signed, is the status of the items that were put on SPLOST 4. according to the law, if you have an item put on SPOS 4 or any SPOS, once that money is received and that project is completed, you have 30 days to notify the county that that project has been completed, correct? Not y'all. Odom and Scriven have already turned all of theirs in. We've asked, the past 2 meetings for Jessup to turn theirs in, and we still have not received it. If that project goes over, the county is to be notified 30 days after, or the public is supposed to be notified within 30 days after that project has gone over, why it has gone over, and how much it's expected to go over. So the motion is that we will give the city of Jessup till October the 25th at 10 a.m. to turn in the signed IGA agreement, which has already been signed with Odom and Scriven. At that point, if they have not signed it, let's say it this way. If they turn it in, we will enter into our lawyer writing up the resolution for us to be able to have that put on the ballot. And also, when they turn that in, we want a list of the SPOS 4 items with the status of those projects that they put on, so that we can let the public know where we stand and how frugal we have been with their money. And that's the motion on the table.
Whose motion is that?
That's my motion.
I just reiterated it so we know that we're voting. If the city does not turn it in by October the 25th, did you have something else?
Mr. Beaver just wanted to make sure that we clarified that he thinks that the motion is that we're going to vote to approve our intergovernmental agreement, the original one.
Yes.
Is that correct, Mr. Beaver?
Yes, the original, not the the approved amended sent from the city. It will be the original one, the same one as SPOS 4. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of clarity, it might be easier to break the motions up, so am I correct in understanding that Mr. Gordon's motion was motion was made to vote to enter into the same agreement that the city of Odom and the city of Scriven have entered into? Is that the first part?
And that I will sign it today.
Just for clarification, I think it may be easier if we split those motions up, so if there's a motion on that.
Okay.
I think if we ask for a second on that part, and then we can address.
I'll second it. Any comments? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCrary?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Hickox? No. Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
All right, so I would like to make a motion that that we do not accept the signatures from the city unless they turn it in with a copy of the status of their projects from SPOS 4.
I'll second.
Any comments? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Hickox? No. Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Commissioner McCrary?
Yes. All right, if that's all we have, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.